Hi, I'm Robert. Welcome to my channel, Healing Mind, Sickening World. I'm trying to devote this channel to talking about what it's like to be experiencing today's struggles from a mind that is not seeing things as clearly as a regular mind. I have paranoid schizophrenia. Over the last year or so, my symptoms have been sort of regressing after 8 or 9 years of steady progress and recovery. And just, it's been really a struggle to watch my stability sort of crumbling in front of me, and at the same time just watching society choosing to destroy itself. I've had the struggle of dating in the trans community, in the LGBT community, as a conservative, and I have to say, as I'm deciding to leave this life behind, it is really almost traumatic. I have been met with such cruelty and hatred and bigotry. I have to say, from my experience and what I've come across in this life, the LGBT community is about as closed-minded and uninclusive and just unaccepting of people who think differently than them as any community I've come across. They're pretty intolerant, and you're not welcome in their community if you think differently. That's my niece's dog. It's been a real struggle, and especially this last year, I broke up with a fiance I had from the Philippines, who I was engaged to for 18 months or more. I broke up with her, and it was the last stable relationship I had, and I really loved her, and I would have married her had things not worked out that I couldn't. And I still mourn losing her. She was the one person in the LGBT community who loved me for who I was. And as I've tried to start dating in my church, my Christian community, and my LDS community, I've really been met with intolerance from them as well, like judgmental people. It's like they'll accept my mental illness, and even that to an extent that no one has really been able to really commit to and stick with trying to work through my difficulties with me. But women in my church in particular, they are quite judgmental of my sexual history, even if during times I am trying to leave it behind. But my recent experiences, feeling like I needed to try to go back into the community. I've had almost nothing but mentally abusive relationships since things ended with me and my fiance. It's been pretty difficult, and I was in communication with a woman who's transgender. It was sort of my last attempt at seeing, like, is there any way I will ever find anybody else who will accept me? I've encountered people who just flat out say trans women do not want conservative men. Trans women want nothing to do with conservative men. I was actually our situations were equated to by a trans woman, a KKK member loving a black woman. And it's like she was trying to get me to answer, like, how can this be? And I wouldn't answer it. I refused to answer it. I told her it's not a good faith it's not a good faith question. Your question is coming with an accusation that me as a conservative am equivalent to a KKK member, and her as a trans woman is equivalent to a 1950s black woman. And on neither side of those are those comparable. They're not realities in our society, and it's pretty rude to make that accusation against someone who's just trying to be kind to you and trying to find something with you. That's all I'll say on that one. But there's this trans woman I was talking to, and she seemed, nicer than the rest, and she seemed at least open to talking to somebody with conservative views. But she then said she needs some time, and she needs to really think it over on whether she, our age difference and our views of the world are too much for us to have a relationship. And I said, I respect that. And I sent her a message. I said, I wanted to know what you think of my comment on this trans woman's videos, as well as maybe looking into her videos yourself. Her name was Nikki. What was it? Nikki. What was it? I'm going to look it up. I'm not really sure what her last name was, but she has a video talking about what it's like to be a conservative transgender woman, and I really, really liked what she had to say. But my video I shared with her was me basically commenting on the fact that when I commented on this conservative trans woman's videos, I was met with someone else commenting saying, wow, looking at your profile, so sad to know you voted for Trump. And it was really, really pretty fucking rude. He was looking through my profile. It sounded, based off what he said, that he saw something inspiring in my profile that he couldn't bring himself to admire without feeling like he was committing some kind of sin, which is why my profile and all of my videos were all centered around my mental illness and my journey getting through it. So what I think happened was he saw that maybe it was a profile that would normally cause him to admire what he was seeing and maybe give it congratulations, but he was saying it's sad that I can't do that because I have to see you as a bad person because you voted for Trump, even though I never said I voted for Trump. I never stated my political views in any way on my profile other than saying that I liked this trans woman's beliefs and her views and what she was doing with her channel. So I sent that to her, and she said, can I ask you if you use drugs or what medications you're on? That was her first response to me sharing my video. And just before that, I had been looking at the before and after comparison of the videos I was doing just after I broke up with my ex-fiance, and the videos I was doing in the last video I just barely did. And I was actually impressed at the level of confidence I had now versus the level of confidence I had when I broke up with my fiance. And that was my reactions from seeing my video. Her reaction was, is this person drugged? Does he take drugs, or is he medicated? Like, it was pretty fucking hurtful. And she said, I think transgender women like Nikki who are conservative are lost. I have empathy for her like I tried to have empathy for every person. But I do believe she is preaching right-wing stances from a place of hurt and a place of wanting to be accepted. That's her first comment on Nikki. She said, it is very, very, very hard to be trans. It is harder than you can imagine. And I never, in all of my dating, have indicated that I believed anything but. I'm sure it's hard to be trans. But she says, on top of that, imagine wanting people to accept you even when they think you're a freak and a degenerate. And I get that as well. I mean, I've sort of had the same experience as someone with mental illness. Some people just don't want to accept that things are more difficult for someone like me than they want to allow understanding for. But she said, I'm not saying that Nikki doesn't genuinely believe in these conservative positions, but I have known trans women who preach right-wing positions like that who are ultimately just doing it for acceptance in mainstream society. And that, to me, seems like she is living in a delusionary world. Conservative belief is mainstream society? Are you serious? as far as all of the power centers of society and everything, that every institution that gives power and shapes the narrative that for the majority of America, it's all preaching acceptance of trans ideology and punishment for non-acceptance. And she goes on. She sent me 4 voice memos, which I can't share. But she said, I believe Nikki and Blair White, etc., believe in the things they do because they do not want mainstream society to think they're freaks. And I wish mainstream society was nicer to people like us, so we wouldn't need to pretend to be conservative. And that to me sounds ignorant. She doesn't know Blair White and Nikki. I don't know. I just forgot her last name. She doesn't know they're pretending to be conservative. She's judging that on her own view of the fact that she believes you cannot be trans and legitimately have conservative beliefs, which in many of my conversations recently, that I've been asked how I love trans women as a conservative, and I always answer because I see people as individuals and I treat people as individuals, and I allow a person to show me who they are outside of whatever group they're associated with. And the response was always, we're not individuals. Essentially saying we are not individuals, we are part of a collective, and we all think collectively. And if you don't support the community, you don't support me. And that's the fundamental difference, and that I'll never be accepted in that community because of the fact that I refuse to see people as members of groups over individuals. And they don't want to be seen that way. They want to be loved as an individual, but as far as how I go about supporting or not supporting their transgender experiences, I have to do it as them as part of a collective. If I don't support the entire community, my love for them cannot be real in their eyes. And so yeah, I'm never going to find what I'm looking for with the trans woman. There may be women like Blair out there and Nikki and I think it's Nikki Powers, but there may be women out there like that. My ex-fiance Mars, she was more close to that, but even her, like I can see as she's moving on, like things probably wouldn't have worked with us. I think there would have always been contention once we actually got married, and she's moved more and more towards sort of the group collective mentality. But so my response to her was, I don't use drugs, and I am on low doses of very effective medication for my schizophrenia. Why do you ask if I use drugs? Because like I said, that was pretty damn offensive, and I wanted to know why. She never addressed it. I said, one of her voice messages says she's some of her positions, and one of them said that she cannot see herself having a relationship with someone who doesn't support abortion, a woman's bodily autonomy. She was saying that abortion is only an issue of bodily autonomy, and that opposition to it is opposition to bodily autonomy. So my response to all of her positions, I said, I am for same-sex marriage. I am for that. Obviously, as someone who was going to marry a trans woman, that would have been considered a same-sex union. And I was grateful when I was going to marry her that that's a freedom we have in this country. I said I am for fair tax. I meant flat tax. I think everybody should be taxed the same. It would get rid of the need of wealthy people to hire accountants to pay lower taxes. That's my understanding of it, anyways. I mean, I'm not pretending to be an expert on taxation. I just do know that when you release burdens on corporations, you incentivize them to grow and build their business, which people hate to hear it, but I believe trickles down. I mean, a company is incentivized to grow their business, to grow their product line, to improve their product line, to improve and grow their workforce, and needing those employees to stay, they would grow incentives for the employee to stay. And that was my experience through much of Donald Trump's presidency. I never had it easier to be employed during Donald Trump's presidency. And I said I am for bodily autonomy, which is why I'm against some of the anti-trans legislation being passed. And I am. There's legislation being passed that prohibits adults from being able to transition. I think any adult should be able to have any cosmetic surgery that they want. If you're going to be banning trans-specific surgeries, then you really should be for banning any cosmetic surgery. Women should not be able to increase their breast sizes. You shouldn't be able to get liposuction. If you're going to be against specific physical surgeries, like physically for appearance surgeries, you should be against all of them. It shouldn't be based off, opposing an ideology. So yeah, I'm against adults not being able to medically transition. But I am also, big caveat here, I am strongly against minors being allowed to do so. We restrict minors from being able to make decisions because they are not mentally developed enough to be making permanent decisions. Minors can't get tattoos. Minors can't get many cosmetic surgeries, but we're okay with them getting hormones injected into them, puberty blockers, and we're banning discussion of honest, legitimate discussion of real side effects from testosterone puberty blockers. And it's evil. It really is. And I'm sorry, she equated anyone being pro-life as evil, as holding the belief of being pro-life is an act of evil. I think it's pretty evil, and I'm not attributing this to any one specific person who may be brainwashed into believing things. I do believe that people are more easily susceptible to being convinced into atrocities if there's mass public approval. And so I don't hold anyone who buys into this responsible enough to where I would say they're committing an act of evil. They might not even be aware. They may believe they're doing a good. But I think as far as the movement and the push to sexualize and confuse children unnecessarily, I think that movement and the motivations behind it, I think, are coming from a place of evil, from our adversary himself. I think that Satan is pushing much of this corruption of children, our most precious asset in this world, the ones we should be protecting from predators like this. We're giving them full permission to go ahead because we don't want to be called a transphobe. We don't want to be called a bigot. And I would rather be called a bigot. I would rather be rejected by every romantic partner I ever have interest in than be okay with saying, yeah, I'm on board with that. I continued by saying, I'm against the pro-life legislation, the trans legislation being passed. I said that is a separate issue from abortion. Abortion is not just about the woman's body. There is another body involved, and that is why people who are pro-life are against the idea that it is just a woman's choice for her own body, because we do believe another body is involved, and that it is just as deserving of consideration in this issue of the value of its life. It is quite obvious that pro-life thing alone, we are not going to be able to have a relationship. I love and respect all people as well, including you and all trans women I've come across. I love freedom as well, because she went on this big rant about how she loves freedom. And I was just curious, like she stated all these freedoms that she loves, but she never once talked about like one of our core fundamental freedoms that was established at the beginning of our country, the freedom of religion. Like, she didn't really mention that, and I didn't really ask her, but I doubt she holds the same reverence for that freedom as for the freedom to end an infant's life, a baby's life. She kept calling it a fetus. I don't accept that premise. It is not a fetus. It is a potential human life. It is a growing human life. It's already been conceived. And she was talking about how difficult it is for women to be forced into raising children because of a mistake. And I have sympathy for that. I think that if somebody goes through an accidental pregnancy, they should be encouraged they should be given support through the pregnancy as much as we can, and then give them right to adoption services, hook them up with adoption services. There are more parents who want children than there are babies available. So it's not like there isn't a market for it. But pregnant women who are considering abortions are not given all the options. They're told this is your one option, or you're going to end up with raising a child you don't want. And then people bring up the issue of rape and incest, and I have deep sympathy for anyone who's been raped or by a stranger or a trusted loved one. It's horrific, and I can't imagine what it's like. But my opinion on that, and this may not be popular, is why punish the baby? The baby didn't do anything. The baby didn't do anything in that crime. It is not guilty in that crime. It may be hard to have the baby as a reminder in life, but I mean, my opinion is even with rape and incest, we should give the women all the support they need to get through the pregnancy. And if they can't deal with the trauma, they're too young, or it brings back too many traumatic memories to be able to raise the baby, then again, hook them up with adoption services and give them as much mental health treatment as they need. It does not make sense to punish the innocent for the crime of their fathers. That does not make sense to me, and it still does not give a valid argument to whether we should value human life at any stage of its existence. So I said, I wish that mainstream society was kinder to you as well, but I don't think Blair White or Nikki Powers are pretending to be conservative. If they wanted acceptance and love, the easiest thing to do would be to adopt the beliefs of the LGBT community. Your community is more prone to looking at people like Blair White as freaks and treating them with terrible unkindness than they would receive if they just gave up what they believe and adopted the approved viewpoints they're allowed to have. I doubt any trans person would find it worth it to pretend to believe things for conservative approval when the counterbalance is extreme hatred from their own community. This just doesn't seem to be something that would make sense to me. That's my 2 cents anyways. I said, I hope I have treated you with kindness. I've done the best I can, showing kindness to anyone who shows it to me. I'm just going to go to her responses. She says, not really. It's much easier to live without acceptance of the trans community so long as you have acceptance from mainstream society. Being conservative will get that for you when you're trans. I promise you, Blair White is happy with being excluded from most of the community. Her whole goal of being conservative is tied to wanting to separate herself from the, and she put scare quotes, freaks of the community. And I'm just wondering, it's like, she's giving up being seen as a freak by conservatives to replace that with being considered a freak among the trans community. I'm just going to finish with that. Like, I'm not going to read anything else she has to say, because that was sort of the point I wanted to finish on. I've experienced both sides of this. I've experienced what it's like to have somebody judge me and tear me down and belittle me for just dating a trans woman. And that's not me being trans at all. I know for a fact that my family would be harsher on me for being trans than being just attracted to trans. But still, like, being attracted to trans does come with judgment with trans women. And so I've been on that side. And I've also been on the side of being judged for having conservative beliefs in the trans community. And the bigotry and the prejudice, I can tell you from being on both sides, it hurts just as much from either side. There is not any form of hatred or bigotry that hurts more than another. Hatred and bigotry hurt equally, no matter where it's coming from. And the viciousness of the hatred and bigotry is a contributing factor as well. And especially with, like, trans women who choose to detransition, they are met with such extreme hatred from people who should be supporting them. I mean, if they were tricked or if they feel like they were deceived into basically living a lie because of what they believed others telling them, and just needing acceptance and whatever caused them to do that, it's got to be hell detransitioning, because you're not only going back into your family and saying, oh my gosh, everything I told you and everything I was so caused so much hell with, it wasn't real. So you got to beg forgiveness of your family, and then you got to also be met with hatred in the trans community for being a traitor. They call them traitors. And my experience is that women have been brutal to me. Trans women have been brutal since my relationship with my fiance. They have been fucking brutal, and especially leading up to right now, the weeks leading up to right now, I've been struggling with my mental state, starting to slip, and some paranoias and fears and delusions that I never thought I'd have to face again. Things I haven't experienced since the mid-2000s. They've been coming back. And just that, combined with just rejection after rejection after rejection, accusations of me as a person because of my political beliefs, devaluing me as a person, having to justify I mean, essentially, I actually got trapped into almost having to apologize for who I am, and saying I would give up everything that mattered to me and everything I valued, just begging the woman, please just consider me a decent, give me the chance to show you I'm a decent person before you jump to conclusions and say I'm not worth knowing. And in essence, I almost was ready to sell my soul just for somebody to show me kindness. That's how much hate and vitriol I've met, just simply looking for love where it's quite obvious I'm forbidden to look. For being who I am, I'm forbidden to look for love where I've been looking. And so I've decided, I've made a decision. My beliefs on what is good and right and just and true in this world is more important than finding love, if that love has to be based on a lie. If I have to lie about who I am and what I believe, and betray my faith to my Lord and the truth of existence that He has created, I'd rather be alone the rest of my life. And that might be something I have to do, because people in the conservative movement, women in the conservative movement, and in my church, they do not accept my past. That's been my reality. I have two things against me. I have mental illness, which is really hard to deal with in a relationship, And I have my past, which has been really easy for women to give up on or even not consider. So I just think it's extremely arrogant to say that you know someone else's experiences enough to say without a doubt that your experience, their experience cannot be equal to yours. In my life, I have suffered quite seriously for more than half my life with the struggles of having a mental illness. And for a while, I thought I was the only one who ever experienced pain to this level. And I've been really blessed to be going through several addictions that led me to my church's addiction recovery program, because I am learning through listening to people in these meetings that I do not have monopoly on pain and suffering. That hearing some things that are shared in there, it's like, oh my God, I am so glad I've never had to experience that. I will never have to experience that. And I'm grateful for the experience I've had. It is, if it could have been something even worse, and I'm realizing there is worse stuff out there. Like what I've gone through has been hell, but I can't discount anyone else's experiences without actually having listened to them. And that's what she's doing. She's assuming the experiences of Blair White and Nikki. Sorry, I forgot your name. Powers, I think. Nikki Powers. She's assuming their experiences. She's assuming their motives, and she's stating matter-of-factly they cannot be equivalent to mine and the community's experiences. And that's ignorant. It's just, we need to be better than this as a society. We need to be able to say that I'll accept you in your acceptance in whatever way you can give me. Because if your attitude is that conservatives hate you, even if their actions are showing you otherwise, and you won't accept their acceptance because it might shake your worldview, how are we ever going to make inroads if we refused to accept acceptance where it comes? How do we heal society? We don't. We just further the division, and that's all anyone wants. And that's what I've learned as I've tried to date in this community. So I'm done with it. I'm done with the community. I had a farewell video several months ago, and I decided to try one more time, and I've come to the same conclusion. The title of one of my videos, LGBT Not For Me. It does not want me. It does not accept me. It hates me. It rejects me. So I say, okay, you don't want me part of your community. You don't want me supporting you. I won't. I refuse to bend over backwards trying to be a support to a community that has shown me nothing but hate, and not nothing but I've had kind in relationships of real love, but on the whole, the community has rejected and hated me. So I'm not going to fight for a community that doesn't accept my support and the fights that I have been making. So goodbye. I'm done. You don't want me. I'm not going to force myself on you. Everybody have a blessed day.